Do I have any interests or hobbies outside of music? The three things that came to mind: um, video games, and in that, it's a mix of playing them, collecting. I used to have a larger collection before I kind of pared it down because it's hard to move with a lot of additional consoles and everything. The dream, is at some point is to have the cool game room where I can like efficiently switch on and off different like systems and invite people over to like have fun gaming experiences, whether it's like from the past or current titles or whatever. And then I also enjoy food. Food's a fun hobby. Just, enjoying food, learning about food in other cultures, learning about, different dishes. Food's, is an art and it's creative, and I want to get more comfortable in the kitchen because I've been looking at food and enjoying food for so long. It's like, I bet I could make some of these things. And then the third thing was history. I love learning about. It seems to be a lot of American history that I focus on because it's where I live. But I love learning about just how things we don't think about were actually decisions from the past that have shaped our culture, or certain people have affected how we interact as humans. Also, just learning about, you know, some of the best people in history and some of the worst people, and just learning that spectrum of humanity too, because it shows how we can connect across generations, and we can see certain trends repeat themselves. I am a big advocate for learning about the past so that you don't repeat the mistakes from it. So I love history and infotainment type podcasts and media. So. Craziest thing that's happened on tour. Um, there's you know, a few like interesting drives, interesting people. Every festival's got its own quirk. Every venue's got its own like, I can't believe that one guy did that thing, or that was really weird when that dude just showed up and stumbled in drunk and that happened. I've had people trip and fall over onto my equipment with their drink still in their hand and then just leave. I've had, people expect me to play in rain that is actively running like a stream of rainwater underneath my keyboard. I've had people, expect me to play in the snow, and it's not like, it's not like an event where that's the theme is being out in the snow. It's like, oh, we're at a wedding, but we're still gonna be outside in December. There's been stories like that. There's been tour moments like when I went out to Colorado with Mark Lavengood and our van broke down twice. Once in Kearney, Nebraska, and I was very lucky because we were almost on a stretch where it had been really difficult and more expensive to like try and address it. And then we broke down in Colorado Springs and had this local mechanic like meet us with a truck that and he sourced the radiator part and like fixed the truck in the parking lot we broke down in. It was crazy. There's always interesting people. There's always like close calls sometimes where like you get into a city and there's traffic. So yeah, there's all sorts of crazy things that happen on tour. It's usually stories about either how it's been run, an event or a venue or whatever, or how, there's always some person who like they end up stealing the show because of just how different they are in a funny, weird way. Like I'm weird, I'm funny, but there's some people who are like they show up on a different plane, and you're like, all right, I guess we're gonna just be at a different wavelength for a little bit. But yeah, that's about as crazy as someone who did classical and jazz background gets. I just I'm not looking for wild, crazy tour moments. What are your plans for the coming months? So with the fall, I had a crazy busy summer. It was super fun. Definitely need some time to recharge. I want to plan a little mini vacation where last year I just did a little Airbnb for like a weekend. I think I'm gonna do the same thing. Um, and There's a trip coming up with Earth Radio. I think by the time this feature comes out, we'll have already done it. But at the time I'm recording this, we're going to be going to Vermont to do some recording. We're going to write an entirely new set of songs and record, however much we can in those 2 days after the, week and a half of writing and travel. So that's a big plan. Some holiday gigs here and there, some fun times with friends and family for the holidays, but not a lot of travel. Just a couple things, and then come January, I'll be back in Ludington working with West Shore Community College for their next musical. This will be my third musical that I've done with them, where I've basically lived in Ludington and worked on the production with them from start to finish. So that'll be great. But for right now, it's a mixture of creative work and rest. So that's that. So what is your biggest musical challenge? Hmm. I'm guess I'm guessing how the question is phrased. I don't. I'll think of my current challenge and then some past highlights. The current musical challenge is expanding. I think vocabulary is kind of the main thing. I want to expand what types of things I can go to for improvising, for arranging, for playing, but then also the vocabulary of understanding synthesis better and understanding how to, use computer software with hardware, like connecting a lot of things, understanding MIDI even more thoroughly so I can play around with that more. Past musical challenges, I've done things like I learned when Wicked came to Davos, I was a sub, and I had less than a week to learn the whole book before the first performance. And then I did 6 shows throughout the run of the time it was at Davos. So that was a lot. Performing at the Bang on a Can Summer Music Festival was definitely one of my biggest challenges. You only get 3 weeks to prep some of the hardest music you've ever seen ever, and then you're playing with people from all over the world who are like high performing in their age group and their in their region. It's not just like, oh, this guy plays guitar. It's like, no, this is a cultural ambassador studying in California for an instrument from South Korea. Like the people who are in academia and they have a higher pedigree, people who are affiliated with all the musicians you see on television and in the, Hollywood film scoring. And so that was a huge challenge, and it's one of the more gratifying experiences I've ever had. A whole month of like learning different genres, playing with some really talented and multifaceted people. Definitely a big challenge, but super worth it. So I think those are definitely 2 big challenges that come to mind. Other than relearning my whole relearning and reevaluating my whole senior recital a month and a half before I had to play it for my undergrad. That was also very stressful. If you could trade places with any musician in the world, who would it be and why? The 2 that immediately come to mind are actually the 3. And maybe not every beat of their life, but like how I perceive their lives to be, which is an important distinction because we don't see every inch of every person's life. But Stevie Wonder, Jacob Collier, Quincy Jones. Those three names, if you look up, obviously with Stevie Wonder and Quincy, dozens upon dozens of hits that have shaped culture, other ventures that have shaped culture, Stevie especially going out into the world and just bringing, so much light and creating so many great, memorable songs. And, all of them are proficient at multiple instruments. They all have, can arrange really well and colorfully and dynamically and for different genres and different artists. They all have experience working with all different kinds of styles and sounds and cultures. They basically have, like Jacob Collier is on Quincy Jones's label. At this point, they're, all three of them can do whatever they want, whenever they want. And it's inspiring because, every time I'm on a wedding gig, I'm like, man, I don't think Jacob Collier has to go play wedding gigs. Like, he's just in his room making some cool thing on Logic. So they motivate me to, like, continue being multifaceted, but also remember the thing that keeps you, the music alive and makes you passionate about it along the way, so you don't feel like you're overwhelmed with goals rather than enjoying them. So that would be my answer. Stevie Wonder, Jacob Collier, Quincy Jones. Those are three people that would be sweet to trade places with and just see what it's like being them.
Just take it where your mouth is jabbing about my sex life. You don't know what I know, but you're giving me advice. You shove me down, negating my emotions and invalidating my voice. You said your heart is really in it, and you care about the lifeline. Shaving up my thighs with your razor blade eyes to squeeze me into skinny jeans. One time you said your heart is really in it, man. Oh, when you give
Right on, right on.